Exclusive contracted novel by Feilu Novel Network. I summon monsters in the Kamen Rider Others are better off. When they enter the world of knights, they either transform into Kamen Riders or have Night Drive, which allows them to install and fight monsters at any time. Lin Yu arrived at the beginning of the night world but turned into a joker. Fortunately, Lin Yu's human form was also there, otherwise there would be no way to play. It seems that I still have a system, but why can this system only summon villains and monsters? Isn't this causing Lin Yu to never return on the path of the villainous leader? In such a situation, Lin Yu can only helplessly say, "How fragrant." What's wrong with the villain? Old Tan is out of print. Warning, General E invites barbecue, the water goddess army crushes, Sagittarius attacks invincibly, reaches the ultimate strength of Cuba, and the strongest power of the exotic encounter. DemonFeilu Novel Network reminds you that this novel and its characters are purely fictional. If there are any similarities, they are purely coincidental and should not be imitated. Chapter 1, Different Jokers. You are listening at novelfull.audio. It's raining. Under the umbrella, a handsome young man in black and white sportswear reached out his right hand to feel the raindrops falling from the sky. The rain moistened his palm and awakened his memories. The young man under the rain is not from this world, but from another world. As for why he came into this world, it can also be considered an accident. Lin Yu, who had just graduated, originally wanted to start a brand new life, but lost his life in a series of car accidents caused by rear-end collisions. At the last moment when his eyes closed, Lin Yu seemed to see his blood turn green, and a faint sound could be heard in his mind. System detection in progress. Testing completed, qualified. Start binding, bind to complete. The villain monster summoning system is at your service. I hope it can bring you better service. But Lin Yu didn't have the strength to listen to these words, and with a flick of his eyes, he fainted and lost consciousness, as if he had lost his life. The system felt that Lin Yu had lost consciousness and began to self-regulate, and then began scanning Lin Yu's body. Ding! During system detection, the detected owner's life signal is weak, starting treatment. At the same time, a green light appeared on Lin Yu's body, and the wounds and blood on Lin Yu's body, including the scars he had accidentally caused before, disappeared. System. Ding! The injury needs to be treated. Preparing to activate the time travel function, please choose time travel world. However, how could Lin Yu, who was in a coma, respond? He had no consciousness left and was lying on the ground with his eyes closed. Depending on the situation, it would take some time for him to wake up. After about 10 seconds without receiving a message, the system automatically defaults to selecting. Detected no response from the owner, the system defaults to random traversal. Random traversal begins, and the world of traversal is the world of Kamen Rider faiz. Please be prepared, owner. As soon as the system finished speaking, Lin Yu's body turned into black particles and disappeared into this world, leaving no trace. In the world of Kamen Rider faiz under the pouring rain, black particles suddenly appeared in the void, and then these particles merged into the appearance of Lin Yu. Lin Yu's body, exposed in the open space, was quickly soaked by heavy rain. Under the reflection of lightning, energy-like waves began to appear on his body, shining with the figure of a monster. In a dark corner, 3 thugs with yellow hair and tattoos walked out and looked at Lin Yu in the rain, full of surprise. "Big brother, there's a human type here." The thug led by him laughed arrogantly and turned to look at the 2 little brothers behind him, saying, "This guy is unlucky to meet us. It would be better if he sacrificed himself to help us." The 2 younger brothers behind him nodded in agreement and said, "That's right, this guy was able to be devoured by us as Awakener. This is his lifelong luck." After exchanging a glance, the 3 of them turned their heads to look at Lin Yu, who had fainted on the ground. His body had unusual fluctuations and strange patterns appeared on his face. Subsequently, in the faint white light, they transformed into 3 Orfino monsters, their bodies covered in black and white. These three types of Afianos are dog-type Afianos, pig-type Afianos, and chicken-type Afianos. However, none of them are any native creatures. They were all killed by other Afadinos and turned into Afadinos, so their level is also very low, probably belonging to lower levels. After transforming, three strange people walked towards Lin Yu's direction, and under the pouring rain, their faces were so ferocious and terrifying. For ordinary people, there is basically no way to avoid it. It seems like they can only wait for death, but the outcome may be different now. After arriving at Lin Yu's side, the dog-shaped Afiino led by him raised his right hand and fiercely inserted it into Yang Ning's heart. By absorbing the life energy of ordinary humans, they can maintain their lives for a longer period of time. Just as the dog-shaped Afiino was about to succeed, the ripples of water-like energy on Lin Yu's body became even more intense. Then, in their shocked eyes, Lin Yu transformed into a strange person covered in fiery red, bathed in flames, with a pair of huge flame wings behind him. The water droplets on his body immediately turned into steam, and in no time, the surroundings were filled with hot water vapor. I saw this strange person grab the hand of the dog-shaped Afiino and slowly stand up, his body trembling non-stop. The dog-shaped Afiino looked at his fist being caught and asked in confusion, "Are you also Afiino, but you still want to die?" However, the dog-shaped Afiino did not receive any response, and now the monster in front of him seemed to have lost his sanity, as if his mind was filled with mixed beasts. The whole monster felt very dangerous. The dog-shaped Afiino looked at Yang Ning and tried to pull out his fist without answering. After the attempt failed, the dog-shaped Afiino said to her companions, "Kill this guy for me. One of us is still so arrogant when he hits us three." The two people next to the dog-shaped Afiino swung their fists and attacked the monster when they heard the boss's words. Strange people also have no idea of resistance, they just lose their will. But the official with their tools had no reaction on his body, as if he had felt something with the strange person. He lifted his head in danger and looked at the three Ofinos in front of him. Then the monster lifted the attack device on its right hand, which looked like a curved knife, and swept it casually. The three monsters felt it and exploded into three cards. The three cards that Afiino transformed into were also spinning and flying towards the monster, who also roared and naturally collected these cards. Then the monster began to struggle with his head covered, feeling extremely painful at first glance, which forced him to lie on the ground due to his weak body. However, even so, the monster continued to roll on the ground, accompanied by heavy rain in the sky and waves of water splashing from the puddles on the ground. After a while, he finally regained his consciousness and slowly stood up, lifting his hands to look at the armor on his hands in confusion, his eyes filled with fear. Have I become a weirdo? Under the intense thunder and pouring rain, the strange person shook his body and slowly walked towards the eaves of the street. He saw his figure in front of a relatively calm pool under the eaves. Isn't this a joker? There was a startled and uneasy exclamation in the tone of the strange person. However, this joker is different from those in TV. The joker Lin Yu transformed into is covered in blood red and has black stripes on his body. Turning around, he saw a pair of wings covered in scales on his skin, with blood red feathers on top of the scales. The armor on Joker's body is also incredibly exquisite, with a shield knife-like shield device on his left arm and a sickle-like attack device on his right wrist. From the appearance alone, the Joker Lin Yu transformed into is very powerful, which can be vaguely seen from just one strike to eliminate those three Ofinos. Why would I become a weirdo and even a joker? In the midst of panic, a wave of energy appeared again on Lin Yu's body, and a picture with a heart appeared in front of him. The energy card of the symbol. After this huge card appeared, it quickly moved in the direction of Lin Yu, and finally passed through Lin Yu's body and disappeared, while Lin Yu also regained his original appearance. Lin Yu regained his senses and lifted his hands to carefully examine. His hands had regained their human form, and his body had also returned to its original state. Don't you need to swipe your card? Does this mean that your body is still there, and Joker is just a form of yourself. Thinking of this, Lin Yu's mind moved and he felt the power inside his body. As expected, after a wave-like energy appeared on Lin Yu's body, he returned to his strange mindset and looked at his arm as a strange person. Lin Yu felt that this method was feasible. Chapter 2, Monster or Knight. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Subsequently, Lin Yu attempted to transform himself back into a human, and indeed, with the help of energy cards, Lin Yu succeeded. So, does that mean that although the strange person just now was himself, he was just a form equivalent to himself? It's okay this way. Otherwise, he would have become a Joker and Lin Yu wouldn't even know what he would do in the future. After Lin Yu regained his human form, only a pleasant female voice came to his mind. Master, you have finally woken up. Lin Yu frowned and said, Who are you? Why are you inside my body, and I can't even feel your presence? System. Master, I am the villain monster summoning system. The main function is to summon villains and monsters from various worlds for the Master, including villain knights and ultimate monsters. After hearing this, Lin Yu didn't pay much attention, but instead harbored resentment towards another question, Did you make me look like this ghost? When Lin Yu said this, his tone was cold and serious. If the system said yes, he would try his best to destroy it, no matter what the cost is. After hearing Lin Yu's questioning, the system quickly replied, Master, the body of this Joker is something you already have, and after traveling through the world, you absorb some special energy in space and accelerate to form the current phoenix-shaped Joker. Master, do you remember that before I bound you, green blood flowed out of your body, and you in that world were about to become a Joker? This is not only because a very serious car accident caused your body to be severely injured in advance, but also because it stimulated your power as a Joker. Even without this incident, you will soon awaken and become a Joker on your own. I just accelerated this process. Is it really like this? Yang Ning carefully thought about what caused her to become a Joker. Could it be Yang Ning suddenly remembered? Did she seem to have swallowed a fiery red stone with black mist out of curiosity when she was a child? Why does Lin Yu suspect it's because of that stone? Because after swallowing that stone, Lin Yu's physical fitness became much stronger than before, and no matter how much he ate, he couldn't gain weight. The brain and thinking also seem to have been developed, which is why Lin Yu has not worked hard in his academic career, but still managed to get into a good university. Thinking of this, Yang Lin nodded helplessly. It seemed like it was really it, but since he had accepted the benefits it brought, he also had to accept its drawbacks. However, Yang Ning believes that its function should not only be like this, but fortunately at this moment, Lin Yu also recognizes his identity as a strange person. Since this fiery red stone has brought so much convenience to oneself, then I cannot turn my back on others. And there's also a decent monster form. Thinking of his Joker form, Lin Yu suddenly had a thought. Since he was also a Joker, could he also transform into a Kamen Rider Chalice? It has to be said that Red Heart A's Mantis Undead is simply the most handsome weirdo in history, the weirdo who doesn't look like a weirdo, and even knights than knights. Although the transformed Chalice is still a strange person, he is at least the same as the masked knight. The most important thing is that he is handsome. And the Kamen Rider Chalice falls between the two, being both an undead beast and a knight. His transformation mode and essence are undead beasts, but Kamen Rider is also one of his identities, sharing the same identity as us. Thinking of this, Lin Yu attempted to summon his Chalice awakening device, but unexpectedly, a blood-red peach-shaped belt appeared on his waist. Lin Yu casually took out a card from the card box on the right side of his belt. He picked it up and saw that it was indeed Heart A. Subsequently, Lin Yu swiped the awakening card. A, transforming into a praying mantis, from the Chalice Awakener. Change. Accompanied by a burst of sound effects, Lin Yu's body began to spread black waves of energy from his belt, enveloping him. Then, these energies suddenly dispersed like droplets, and Lin Yu transformed into the Kamen Rider Chalice. Although the Kamen Rider Chalice appears to be a Kamen Rider, he essentially stole the appearance and power of the undead beast Hearts A. Red Heart A is the most Kamen Rider-like monster, but fundamentally, Red Heart A still belongs to the category of monsters. The tattoos on the body of the Kamen Rider Chalice transformed by Lin Yu are blood red, and the knight's armor is much more handsome than the original version. After watching himself transform into Chalice through the puddle on the ground, Kamen Rider Chalice reached out and took out all the cards from the card box. Kamen Rider Chalice discovered that he had all the cards in the Heart series, which meant he could transform into a more advanced form. Wild Chalice. This is good news, and in addition to these cards, Kamen Rider Chalice also discovered the 3 Orfino cards that had previously attacked him. It seems that after their own attack, they will not disappear directly, but will be sealed into cards. Kamen Rider Chalice felt weak as he looked at the cards of the 3 of them. After all, how powerful a move can be. The system sensed the disdainful gaze of Kamen Rider Chalice and reminded, Master, unnecessary cards can be recycled and converted into summoning points, which can be exchanged for the opportunity to summon monsters. Kamen Rider Chalice looked at the card in his hand as he exited and transformed. He picked up the card and said to the system, Do I have a chance to summon now? System. Master, you now have 3 free summoning opportunities. Do you want to use them? Lin Yu nodded when he heard this and said, Summon. Coincidentally, I also want to see how the system summons monsters. Yes, Master. After receiving Lin Yu's approval, the system began its function of summoning monsters, and then 9 virtual cards appeared in front of Lin Yu. The system said to Lin Yu, who was full of doubts, Master, these cards are sealed with strange people from various worlds. They may be very strong or very weak. It all depends on your luck, Master. Lin Yu nodded as he looked at the neatly arranged virtual cards in front of him, indicating that he understood. These cards were completely invisible to Lin Yu, and he could only rely on luck to seal any monsters or villains. Because only after drawing can he understand the result, Lin Yu casually picked up one of the 9 virtual cards. And when Lin Yu's hand touched the card, it also turned into a physical card and was drawn out. Lin Yu curiously took a look. The one displayed above is the most ordinary card repair soldier for major repairs, which is the type of card repair soldier who treats the most ordinary and garbage as cannon fodder. Lin Yu's face turned black when he saw this. System, did this guy also count in? The system fell silent for a moment and said, Master, the card repair minions among the card repair monsters do belong to the ranks of villainous monsters and can be drawn. Lin Yu shook his head helplessly and placed the drawn card repair minions in front of the 3 Orfino monsters, saying to the system, Exchange them together for me. It's useless to keep them, I feel weak as cannon fodder. System. Yes, Master. After the system accepted, taking a few cards turned into energy particles and disappeared in mid-air, completely losing its trace. Lin Yu took a look and found that in the upper right corner of the lottery page, there were 400 more summoning points for Lin Yu, who was originally 0. It seems that these few are all of the same value, but these Orfinos are actually on the same level as the Shioka minions in the Shioka organization. Pooh! Shame! It's so weak. How dare you take action against Lin Yu, weak chicken. After regaining his senses, Lin Yu looked at the deck in front of him, which had already restored 9 virtual cards, and said, You said you could draw 3 times, so I can also draw a few cards at once. The system also responded positively, That's right, Master. There were indeed 3 initial draws, and as long as there were enough draws, multiple cards could be drawn at once. That's not bad. After receiving recognition from the system, Lin Yu spread his hands and took out a card from each deck. Having used up both lottery opportunities at once, Lin Yu felt anxious as he looked at the back of the card. I hope I can get something good. With both hands flipping over at the same time, Lin Yu's body is really nervous at the moment. After seeing the appearance of the 2 cards, Lin Yu's eyes suddenly widened, to his surprise. What villain or eccentric person surprised Lin Yu so much? Chapter 3, Mezuru. Dr. Death. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Upon closer inspection, on the card in Lin Yu's left hand was an octopus monster. If anyone knew who the octopus monster was, it would be unclear. So, Dr. Death is among the cadres of the major overhaul card. Do you still remember the grandfather who caused harm in Jinsha, or the old man who appeared in the Kamen Rider deck to help the early Menyashi traverse? This monster is the Dr. Death, who has strong scientific research abilities and combat effectiveness. His tentacles can extend his attack and simultaneously attack several Kamen Riders. Although he ultimately failed, it does not mean that his strength is weak. If we only talk about combat effectiveness, Dr. Death's combat effectiveness is still top-notch in this world, and his abilities can be considered very strong. And the main role of Dr. Death is not as a combat unit, but as a research unit, which is the most cost-effective. Dr. Death has strong research abilities and can create many powerful monsters. He can also conduct research on other projects. Subsequently, Lin Yu's right finger opened and a female monster resembling a shark appeared on the card. This monster is Mezuru, a water monster in Kamen Rider 000, but currently Lin Yu's monster only appears to have 4 coins, not all of them. If it were a complete whole, even if Lin Yu had made a fortune in this world, but even if Mezuru was not a complete whole, her abilities were still very strong. She is simply the best choice for Legion tactics, just pay a coin and then search for someone with a strong desire. Driven by desire, Lin Yu was able to obtain many ordinary coins and also many strange people. However, Lin Yu's eyes furrowed as he looked at these 2 cards. Dr. Death was okay to say, but he couldn't turn into Mezuru himself, could he? Thinking of this, Lin Yu's body trembled for a moment and he asked the system, have these 2 cards been sealed? Can I unblock them? After hearing Lin Yu, the system said, of course, Master. The monsters with card seals summoned by the system are completely loyal to their master, even if you unseal them or accidentally break them, they are also the most loyal subordinates to their master. Upon hearing this, Lin Yu felt relieved and placed these 2 cards on his Chalice Awakener at his waist to swipe them. Mezuru, Dr. Death. After the prompt sound, the 2 cards in Lin Yu's hand flew into mid-air and transformed into 2 huge energy cards. Then these 2 energy cards moved to the sky, and the 2 monsters fell steadily from the energy cards to the ground. Mezuru, who came to the ground, controlled the raindrops around her and formed a huge circular barrier in mid-air. This barrier blocked all the raindrops around her, making it a safe haven. Later, Mezuru watched as Lin Yu transformed into a pure and innocent girl wearing a student uniform, while the octopus monster transformed into a kind-looking old man holding a bottle of beer and squid. Later, Mezuru and the old man both knelt down on one knee in front of Lin Yu, their eyes full of loyalty. See you, young master. Lin Yu also nodded at them, this title is not bad. After looking at them kneeling on the ground, Lin Yu helped them up and said with satisfaction, get up, we will be family from now on, there's no need to have so much etiquette. Mezuru jumped up happily and hugged Lin Yu's arm when she heard this, her cute face carrying a satisfied smile. Is this love from the family? It feels pretty good, she said. Dr. Death shook his head and said solemnly, young master, this kind of thing cannot be used. Master and follower are orderly, and these things cannot be chaotic. Looking at their different attitudes, Yang Ning also felt relieved. At least this represents that they are real life, not mass-produced artificial intelligence. However, Lin Yu did not force them anymore. As long as they lived well according to their own personalities, it was enough. There was no need to change their personalities according to their own wishes. Looking back at the place where he had traveled, Lin Yu gave a nostalgic look in his eyes, and then left the place with Mezuru and Dr. Death beside him, preparing to start his new life in this world. With Dr. Death, Lin Yu naturally doesn't have to worry about any accommodation or money. Everything has been taken care of by Dr. Death. In order to create a good environment for Lin Yu, Dr. Death directly found a local tycoon to transform it into a monster, a completely loyal monster to Lin Yu. Then, the transformed tycoon will naturally consider Lin Yu's affairs as the biggest priority, and arranging the accommodation for Lin Yu and others is also the best place he has personally arranged. And the wealthy man had already handed over all his shares to Yang Ning, but he voluntarily became an employee who helped Lin Yu work and earn money. However, he had no complaints about this, as his thoughts had been completely transformed and the powerful force in his body had also caused him to lose himself. In this situation, Lin Yu successfully became the top legitimate invisible billionaire in the city, and he didn't want anyone to disturb his life. Correspondingly, the SB Society also discovered signs of Lin Yu, but they have not yet discovered Lin Yu's power. They just thought that Lin Yu used some means to deprive this person of his wealth. With the ability of SB Society, they didn't care and just glanced casually before skipping. Ordinary people are like fat on their lips, they can eat at any time they want, so they don't panic. Now their most important thing is to snatch the night belt. The night belt invented by the former president is the most harmful weapon to them in the world. But that's not about Lin Yu's business. As long as the SB Society doesn't provoke Lin Yu doesn't want to worry about their battles. But if the SB Society didn't provoke themselves with their long eyes, Lin Yu wouldn't have made it easier for them. If it weren't for Lin Yu's watching, the strange people of Mezuru would have already occupied this city. However, during this period of searching, Mezuru has found several candidates with strong desires, and one of them has successfully brought great benefits to Mezuru. Lin Yu also gained a lot of glory, absorbing a lot of ordinary coins to enhance his strength, and those strange people were also exchanged for points by Lin Yu. 50 fish-shaped yummy, greedy person, brought 10,000 points to Lin Yu, with each yummy earning 200 points, which is enough for Lin Yu to participate in 10 basic lottery draws. Since then, Lin Yu has lived in a villa with Xuan Yang and Dr. Death. Dr. Death, while responsible for research, is also Lin Yu's butler, striving to bring Lin Yu a more refined and beautiful life. Mezuru's words were to completely pour her love into Lin Yu, treating Lin Yu as his lover. Perhaps Mezuru doesn't have much emotional attachment yet, but her emotions and love have already been handed over to Lin Yu. This is also why she turned the yummy she created into a card and exchanged points with Lin Yu. Lin Yu also fell in love with Mezuru, and the two of them established a relationship. However, Mezuru's relationship is not yet comprehensive, and she has no perception at all. Therefore, Lin Yu did not take the next step with her. Usually, the two of them just click and stop. Lin Yu was looking forward to the time when Mezuru gathered all 10 coins, according to the system, when Mezuru gathered all 10 coins. Mezuru will have complete human emotions, and her body will also have human feelings. With the 5 senses of human beings, that is the best time to take the relationship closer. Now, it can only be considered taking advantage of the danger. Moreover, Dr. Death has made new progress, and after half a month of hard work and research, Dr. Death has developed the following achievements. Dr. Death has developed a trial version of the core coin using a core coin and many ordinary coins brought out by Mezuru. However, this coin is still very unstable and requires further experimental development. Moreover, the replenishment of coin energy is also very unstable, and it may take some time to solve this problem, but it is already sufficient for Mezuru and Lin Yu. Chapter 4, Girls in the Rain. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Life is very good for Lin Yu now, with 2 people who completely trust him. Isn't that good enough? Due to the red stone, although Lin Yu's abilities have been enhanced in all aspects, he has also developed an instinctive distance from humans, possibly due to the subconscious of a self-eccentric person. Moreover, Lin Yu can also feel people's hearts and their true selves, so he is unwilling to deal with those who have deep inner thoughts or are dark inside. And those people kept belittling Lin Yu behind his back because of his actions, making Lin Yu's friends few and his life naturally less enjoyable. From a young age, it's hard to feel the ugliness in Lin Yu's heart. There are really few true friends. Even if there were, they were far away from Lin Yu due to their grades, so Lin Yu didn't care much about the original world. If it's parents, should a parent who abandoned themselves from a young age care about them? No. While lost in thought in the rain, Lin Yu suddenly heard a burst of crying, which woke him up from his memories. Lin Yu turned his head and saw a thin girl holding her legs and crying on the ground under the pouring rain. Seeing this girl, Lin Yu thought of himself who had just arrived in this world, and he could also feel that the girl's heart was very kind. Lin Yu is sometimes quite grateful for his ability to sense people's hearts, as it has allowed him to take many shortcuts and not so many detours. Lin Yu, who felt sorry for this girl, came to her side with an umbrella and sheltered her from the fierce wind and rain. But the girl seemed to have not noticed this, her whole body was soaked and trembling, constantly crying, not even noticing the addition of a living person by her side. After standing beside her in the rain to block the wind and rain for a while, Lin Yu saw her thin and trembling figure and took off his coat to drape over her. The girl also reacted and felt the warmth on her body. She lifted her head and stared blankly at Lin Yu through her scattered hair, her eyes filled with pain and despair. Of course, due to Lin Yu's reasons, she seemed to feel a bit of hope, with a slow smile on her face and a hint of surprise in her eyes. Does someone finally care about me? This feeling is really good. After seeing the pain and surprise in the girl's eyes, Lin Yu felt very heartbroken. What kind of life made such a girl look like this? Before Lin Yu could speak, the girl's body began to wobble, and then she fainted as soon as her eyes closed. Lin Yu quickly squatted down and helped the unconscious girl, watching her trembling body wrap around her body with dry clothes, and helped her up. Then Lin Yu held an umbrella in his left hand and gently lifted her onto his back with his right hand, quickly leading her to his villa. After returning to the villa, Lin Yu immediately placed the girl on the sofa and then looked at Mezuru on the other side. I saw Mezuru holding a water ball in her hand, and Mezuru was constantly controlling the water ball to change its shape. Mezuru did this because she was bored. Dr. Death, on the other hand, is cooking in the kitchen, and the table is actually filled with food. However, Dr. Death still hopes to cook more for Lin Yu, and it must be the best, so Lin Yu's food is personally cooked by Dr. Death. Lin Yu looked at Mezuru, who was still playing with water polo, and said, "Mezuru, come and help me." Bored Mezuru also walked towards Lin Yu with a smile on her face when she heard Lin Yu's words. However, after seeing the girl on the sofa, Mezuru felt a hint of dissatisfaction in her eyes. It was like a girlfriend catching her boyfriend looking for a mistress, but this expression quickly dissipated due to the love in her heart for Lin Yu. Later, Mezuru deeply buried it, thinking that Lin Yu wouldn't like a jealous woman. Having regained her smile, Mezuru looked at Lin Yu naturally and asked, "Lin Yu, who is this girl? Why did you bring her back?" Lin Yu shook and said, "I don't know who she is. She was picked up by me on the street. When I found her, he was drenched in rain and crying non-stop on the street. I felt sorry for her, so I brought her back." When Mezuru heard this, the last bit of dissatisfaction in her eyes disappeared, and her eyes were full of love for the unconscious girl, just like a sister looking at her sick sister. "Take her into your room, change her clothes, and help her recover. After she wakes up, take her out for dinner." Mezuru nodded as she looked at the thin girl and helped her into his room. Lin Yu watched them enter and turned his head to look at Dr. Death, who was serving tea. "Well, doctor, could you please help me make a bowl of ginger soup? That girl needs to warm her body." Dr. Death nodded decisively upon hearing this and said, "Okay, young master, I'll do it right away." After finishing speaking, Dr. Death stopped his other work and started busy preparing the ingredients for ginger soup, hoping to make high-quality ginger soup. Lin Yu also felt a bit helpless when he saw this. Dr. Death, the cadre who made the monster's major repair card, became an all-around butler, proficient in various cuisines from different countries, and handled small and large affairs in an orderly manner. It really moved Lin Yu. Lin Yu sat on the sofa and turned his head to look at Mizuru's room. He remembered the girl and Lin Yu began to feel regretful. Such a kind and innocent person, how could it be so painful? In Mezuru's room, Nagata Yuhua, lying on a sky-blue bed, felt warmth and comfort and slowly opened her eyes in a daze. A girl who looked incredibly innocent was holding a set of clothes and constantly gesturing around her, as if she was looking at whether it was suitable for her. Ah! Who are you and where am I? Nagata Yuka exclaimed in horror upon seeing this. Mizuru didn't pay attention to Nagata's actions and casually threw away the clothes in her hand, shaking her head and saying, "It's still not suitable. Let's look for another one." Mezuru felt that Nagata Yuhua had been looking at her all along. She turned her head helplessly and said, "I'm Mezuru. Of course, Lin Yu brought you back here. When you first arrived, your whole body was covered in rain and you fainted, so I'm looking for clothes to change for you." After Mizuru finished speaking, she rummaged through her wardrobe again, but she never really liked anything. Although eccentric people don't need to buy clothes, Lin Yu still prepared a lot of clothes for her. It's impossible to always wear that school uniform, although it looks good, it's too monotonous. Nagata Yuka covered her head and finally remembered everything. So it's like this, she said, thinking of Lin Yu, who had descended like an angel in her memory. Nagata Yuhua felt as if something had filled her heart, filling it all up. Lin Yu, who was resting in the living room, heard the cry of Nagata Yuhua and rushed over quickly, instantly opening the door. Mezuru's door is never locked, and no opposite sex can enter except for Lin Yu, even Dr. Death. However, after Lin Yu came in, she saw this scene, and Nagata Yuhua was also stunned as she looked at Lin Yu with a bewildered expression, as if she was shy. "Sorry, I heard a shout, so I came to take a look. Since it's okay, I'll go down first." Then Lin Yu closed and returned to the living room, having his own guess about what had just happened. It seemed that Nagata Yuhua was a bit panicked when she came to the unfamiliar environment, which was why she shouted loudly. In the room, Yuka Nagata quickly wrapped her body in a sheet and then wrapped her head in it, making her feel like a mimosa. Nagata's face inside the blanket also started to turn red unnaturally, because it was the first time she had encountered such a thing, and now she felt extremely embarrassed. Chapter 5, Girls' Thoughts. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Mizuru didn't have much knowledge in this area and didn't find anything wrong. After searching again, she finally found a satisfactory set of clothes and threw it in front of Nagata Yuhua. "This outfit just fits you recently. You can put it on." Lin Yu said. "Your previous outfit was already wet." Nagata Yuka stepped out of her head and responded, then reached out her arm to take the clothes inside the sheet and put on this set of clothes. Nagata Yuhua is also afraid that this situation will happen again just now, which will make the atmosphere very awkward and Yuhua will feel unnatural. Changtian Jiehua, who had put on her clothes and came out, smiled at Mizuru, who was curious and watching beside her. She looked like an angel who had fallen from the mortal world. Mizuru nodded in satisfaction as she looked at Nagata Yuhua in a white dress. "Let's go. We're starting to eat, Lin Yu is already waiting for us." After finishing speaking, Mizuru happily walked towards the dining table in the living room with Nagata Kazuka. Although Mizuru didn't have a taste sense now, she couldn't feel any taste after eating these foods. But Mezuru still enjoys eating with Lin Yu very much, so she always participates in every meal, which makes Mezuru's feelings more real. Mezuru also likes it. Nagata Yuka has now begun to regain consciousness, looking up at the luxury here and unconsciously starting to feel inferior. The environment from childhood to adulthood has made Nagata Yuka's personality very insecure. Even though her conditions are much superior to others, she still feels insecure, which is also the reason why she is often bullied. After feeling insecure, Nagata Yuka lowered her head and followed Mizuru to the dining room in the living room. Nagata Yuka saw a huge table in the middle of the dining room. This table is filled with a sumptuous variety of dishes, including Chinese, Western, and Japanese. There are various types of dishes available. These are all handmade by Dr. Death. In order to satisfy Lin Yu's taste and curiosity, Dr. Death will make dishes from different countries every day, making it easier for Lin Yu to get the dishes he likes. Of course, there are always half of the dishes for Chinese cuisine every time, because Lin Yu prefers Chinese cuisine. Dr. Death will also study Chinese cuisine according to Lin Yu's wishes, and each dish is made with a perfect combination of color, aroma, and flavor. This is also Dr. Death's intention to make Lin Yu feel the different flavors of different countries and satisfy his desire to take the reign orally. There is no need to worry about money at all. After Dr. Death's long-term development, he has secretly transformed 10 top billionaires. Under the behind-the-scenes manipulation of Dr. Death, their assets also secretly began to merge under the pretext of cooperation, gradually forming a huge consortium. The daily income of this consortium alone is already a huge amount, and they don't even care about these small amounts of money. Upon seeing such a sumptuous dinner, Yuka Nagata also felt flattered and surprised. She dared not sit on the chair for a long time, feeling like she was dreaming. Lin Yuyang looked up at Changtian Jiehua, who looked like a frightened little white rabbit, and could feel the unease in her heart. It was also Lin Yuyang who stood up and came to her side, taking her to her seat and sitting down. "This is just a regular dinner, don't worry so much, take it easy." After Nagata Yuhua sat down, Lin Yudan brought a bowl of ginger soup and placed it in front of her. "This is the ginger soup I ordered the butler to make for you. It's very useful for dispelling the cold. Drink it." "It's the first time someone has been so kind to her," said Nagata Yuka as she looked at Jiang Tang in front of her with tears in her eyes and warmth in her heart. With an excited heart trembling, Nagata Yuka lifted the bowl of ginger soup and slowly took a sip. Tears unconsciously dripped into the ginger soup, making it a bit salty. Moreover, the temperature of the ginger soup was no longer so hot. But Nagata Jiehua felt incredibly sweet when drinking it, and his heart was also particularly warm. He drank the ginger soup in one breath. Later, Nagata Yuhua stood up and bowed deeply to Lin Yu, his eyes filled with seriousness and emotion. "Thank you, Mr. Lin Yu. I will repay you in the future." Lin Yu watched as Changtian Jiehua lifted her body and pressed him onto the chair. With a serious expression on his face, he looked at her and said, "All right, don't say so much. Let's start having dinner. As long as you can live a good life and become confident, it will be my greatest comfort." After hearing Lin Yu's words, Nagata Yuhua nodded seriously and then, led by Lin Yu, began to enjoy dinner with him and the others. From time to time, Lin Yu would also add some of his favorite dishes to Changtian's bowl. Looking at Changtian's flower-like expression, Lin Yu knew that her life was not very good, and he was also full of pity for her. Looking at Mezuru, who had been staring at him all along, Lin Yu treated him equally and put some dishes into Mezuru's bowl. Mezuru also started eating with a smile on her face. After a harmonious dinner, Nagata Yuhua wanted to leave because she was afraid that if she got used to this kind of life, she wouldn't be able to accept such a black one anymore. Lin Yu didn't try to persuade Changtian Jiehua too much, but he was also willing to do something within his own abilities. Arriving at Nagata's side, Lin Yu took out a card from his pocket and placed it in her palm. "This is my business card, with my phone number and address on it. If you want to open it in the future, come find me. I will treat you like family." Upon hearing this, Nagata Yuhua couldn't help but shed tears. She ran and hugged Lin Yu's body, burying her head in his arms and quietly enjoying the moment with her eyes closed. For Nagata Yuhua, this warmth was enough to make him remember it for a lifetime. "Mr. Lin Yu, if there is a chance in the future, I will definitely repay you." After holding Lin Yu for a while, Nagata Yuhua rushed out of the door, holding the card tightly in her hand, as if it was the entirety of her life. Lin Yu shook his head as he watched Changtian Jiehua's figure recede, as if he had forgotten to ask her what her name was. "Forget it, come and meet her from afar." After taking a glance at the dazzling starry sky after the storm, Lin Yu was mesmerized by the beautiful scenery for a long time. After a dark cloud blocked the starry sky, Lin Yu returned to his villa and began his daily life. The weather today is pretty good. Today, due to the sunny weather, Lin Yu and Mezuru came to the street together. The two of them were ready to have a good time, just for a simple play. Mezuru wandered around various stalls and shops from time to time, curiously collecting information about everything around Lin Yu. Nowadays, Mezuru's emotions are already very rich, and she can experience some human emotions, such as joy, anger, sorrow, love, and so on. However, as a weirdo, Mezuru still couldn't detect her five senses about humans, which is also a regret for Mezuru. However, it's also coming soon. After several days of research and collecting a large amount of data from Awakener, Dr. Death has developed a semi-finished core coin. Moreover, as the summoned, Lin Yu can also use the points reward to supplement Mezuru's strength, which means that the points can be exchanged for core coins and input into Mezuru's body to completely revive her. However, that type of core coin requires 10,000 points to be exchanged for one, and Lin Yu has already exchanged his 10,000 points for a core coin for Mezuru and handed it to her, making her body more complete and adding an extra layer of thin armor. Mezuru now has 5 core coins, but one of them is being studied by Dr. Death. However, Mezuru already has 4 coins, which is much better than before. So these days, Mezuru's face has been smiling, and she has become even more enthusiastic towards Lin Yu, looking very happy. So, the two of them spent the whole day strolling on the street, eating various snacks and playing various games. Although Mezuru doesn't have a sense of taste, what does it matter? Mezuru enjoys the time spent playing with Lin Yu, not the food. Chapter 6, Unexpected Transformation. Kamen Rider Faiz. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The two of them kept leaving their own shadows in the corner of this city, leaving behind beautiful memories and memories. However, Lin Yu suddenly discovered an Awakener. If it were only Awakener, Lin Yu wouldn't care too much. However, this Awakener is a fish-shaped Awakener, which will be helpful for the study of water coins. This made Lin Yu interested in this Awakener, so Lin Yu followed him with Mezuru. Lin Yu doesn't want to expose his identity in public in the hall. Although it won't cause any commotion, it will have a certain impact on his life. And these things are already better hidden, the more others know, the more unfavorable it will be for you. If this data from Awakener can be obtained, it will be helpful for the study of core coins, even if it is just a little bit, it is still good. After following Awakener with Mezuru for a period of time, Lin Yu realized that he seemed to be following a girl forward. Lin Yu took a closer look and found that the girl was Yuan Tianjin, but her expression was clearly a bit flustered, as if she was avoiding something. Is this guy the one who was kicked out by the Kamen Rider Others for the first time? This Awakener's combat power seems like a weak chicken. If it weren't for his usefulness, Lin Yu would have wanted to eliminate it long ago. Although Lin Yu and Mezuru followed Awakener, the rural truth did not think so, because Awakener was well hidden and appeared on the road as a worker, occasionally doing his work. Yuzuru Arata did not notice the tracking of Awakener, but Yuzuru Arata noticed Lin Yu and Mezuru following behind her, thinking they were snatching the belt. Yuzuru Arata's heart began to panic. What should we do, what should we do? There are actually 2 this time. No, I must get rid of them. Yuan Tianjin hurriedly accelerated her speed and ran towards the front when she arrived here, but she didn't know what Yuan Tianjin was thinking. She actually ran towards a sparsely populated area. She chose a place with many bends and accelerated her speed to constantly shuttle through these areas. She used to use this method to get rid of tracking. However, Lin Yu and Mezuru were able to sense and find her, closely following behind her. The person who followed Yuan Tianjin also easily followed up, but Yuan Tianjin didn't care because she had already determined that Lin Yu and Mezuru were Awakener. After running for a while with a box containing a knight's belt, the panicked Yuzuru Arata took a big bend and arrived at a factory. There was no way ahead, and Yuan Tianjin turned around to look at Lin Yu and Mezuru who were following him, taking a cautious step back. What kind of people are you two? I would never give you my belt. You should die with this heart. Lin Yu and the others had not yet spoken, but Yuan Tianjunli heard footsteps from behind and turned his head to watch the man wearing worker clothes walk over. Sir, it's dangerous. Please leave here, the two of them are not good people, exclaimed Yukida Shinji hurriedly to the disguised fish-shaped Ofino. The man who was persuaded to leave by her garden truth laughed and said, I think you misunderstood some things. They are just two ordinary people, and I am the noble Ofino. At this point, the mark of Ofino appeared on the person's face, emitting a faint white light, and he also instantly transformed into Ofino. However, this did not stop. The fish-shaped Ofino underwent a sudden change and directly transformed into a passionate state, with its lower body transforming into a fish's tail. The passionate fish Ofino can hover in the air, like a fish in water attacking the truth in the garden. The Kamen of Yukida Shinji dodged the attack of the fish Ofino, dodged the attack with a sideslip, and then opened the box containing the faiz belt. Yuzuru Arata picked up her faiz belt and tried to put it on her waist, then picked up her transformation phone and entered the transformation code 555. She pressed the enter button and closed the transformation phone. Standing by after hearing the transformation prompt, Yuzuru Arata shouted out, Henshin. Subsequently, Yuzuru Arata watched as Ofino slowly approached and inserted his transformed phone into the waistband slot, quickly turning the angle of the transformed phone to right. Error, disqualification. Accompanied by the warning sound of transformation failure, the high voltage current generated by the self-protection mechanism of the Knight's belt shook out Genji Arata. The faiz belt also fell to the ground, and the fish-shaped Ofino returned to the battlefield and wanted to retrieve it when he saw the faiz belt on the ground. Yuan Tianjunshi was also a bit anxious when she saw this. She braved the pain and came forward to retrieve her belt, feeling flustered in her heart. Yuan Tianjunshi felt like she had a treasure trove in her hand and couldn't use it, but she really couldn't transform now. So what else is there? Suddenly, Shinji Yuantian noticed Lin Yu behind her and said, perhaps this guy can transform into a faiz, but it doesn't matter. Give it a try. Lin Yu and Mezuru were unaware of Yuan Tianjunli's thoughts, and Lin Yu, who wanted to collect the Ofino data, came directly to Yuan Tianjunli. That fish-shaped Ofino also stopped his steps with caution. Get ready to attack. Lin Yu looked at Orphei Ino in front of him with a hint of interest in his eyes. Although the essence of Orphei Ino is the same, this fish like Orphei Ino's passionate state has some data that Lin Yu needs to collect. And just as Lin Yu was about to summon his Chalice awakening device, Uriya Arata suddenly stepped forward and tied his belt around Lin Yu's body. Lin Yu turned his head and looked at Yuan Tian, who was wearing a knight's belt for him, with a puzzled expression on his face. Why is this? Yuan Tianjunshi looked at Lin Yu helplessly and said, don't worry, you'll know after trying. Did you give it to me because Qianxiao was not here? However, Lin Yu didn't know if he could transform successfully. After all, although Joker and Ofino were both strange people, the difference between the two was still quite significant. However, before Lin Yu could speak up, Yuan Tianjunshi said to himself, always give it a try, maybe you can succeed. After finishing speaking, Shinji Arata picked up her transformation phone and entered the transformation code 555. She pressed the enter button and closed the transformation phone. Standing by then he came to Lin Yu's side and pressed his transformed phone against his body, inserting it into the belt slot. Complete after inserting the transformed phone, 2 photon blood appeared on the belt tied to Lin Yu's body, flowing through his body. Subsequently, the photon blood emitted a burst of red light. The red light illuminated the entire space, and everyone present blocked the intense light with their palms. As Qianxiao, who had just entered, saw this scene blocking his eyes, he couldn't help but feel a little surprised and said, what exactly is this? At the beginning, Yuan Tianjunli had always regarded Lin Yu as a bad person, so her initial suspicion of Qianxiao became a safe target. However, Qianxiao always felt an inexplicable familiarity as he looked at the night belt on Lin Yu's body, and he didn't know why. Qianxiao frowned and thought back, but couldn't remember anything. She shook her head and said her gaze shifted to the battlefield. When Lin Yu transformed into a Kamen Rider faiz and was preparing to test the power of this belt, an accident occurred. Chapter 7, Mutations in the Chalice Awakener. You are listening at novel full.audio. I saw that the night belt around Lin Yu's waist underwent a transformation and turned into a Chalice awakening device. Then, a card automatically flew out of the card slot on the right and came to the face of the Kamen Rider faiz. Subsequently, this card emitted a radiance in front of the Kamen Rider faiz, generating a strong suction force, and there was also an energy absorbed from the Kamen Rider faiz's body into this card. After a short while, waiting for the light and suction to disappear, the card was divided into three and spun automatically towards the direction of the Kamen Rider faiz. The Kamen Rider faiz also waved his hand and caught them all. Faiz, the Kamen Rider, looked curiously and saw that the pattern on one of the cards inside had changed to look like faiz. The two split images at the back show the appearance of Kamen Rider faiz's motorcycle power Tianma, while the last one shows the Golden Knight symbol of Kamen Rider faiz, which looks like a must-kill card. This must-kill card can now use all the necessary kills in the normal form of Kamen Rider faiz. The Kamen Rider faiz saw the pattern on it and roughly understood the usage method. Then he opened the back and it was indeed the same as before. It seems that these cards all inherit the characteristics of this knight. No matter what kind of card it is, even if its functions are different, the back is like a playing card and there is no relevant knight logo. But fortunately, the card box of Kamen Rider Chalice has an automatic filtering function, so there is no need to choose slowly. As long as Lin Yu wants to use any card, he will touch it, which is very convenient. However, Lin Yu feels that the Chalice Awakener may have more functions than he imagined. After putting these cards back into the card box on the right side of the Chalice Awakener on the waist of the Kamen Rider faiz was also transformed back into a faiz belt. Fish-shaped Orphi, Inofi, rushed towards the Kamen Rider faiz while taking advantage of it. Although it was a bit strange, getting the belt back was the most important thing. Otherwise he wouldn't be able to bear the consequences of failure during the flight. The fish-like Awakener summoned the weapon trident and fiercely attacked the Kamen Rider faiz. The Kamen Rider faiz leaned back and dodged its attack. As it flew over him, he kicked it and hit the roof, causing several huge cracks. He screamed in pain and fell down. Faiz, the Kamen Rider, watched as the fish-like Awakener, who was constantly trying to climb up on the ground, slowly walked up to her and put his foot on its body. He leisurely pulled out a sealed card from behind. Fish-shaped Awakener couldn't escape as soon as he saw that he couldn't fight. He quickly threw a shadow on the wall, begging for mercy, "Please let me go. I promise I won't provoke you again, please." Faiz, the Kamen Rider, remained indifferent and threw the card onto the pleading fish-shaped Orfino. With Orfino's screams of terror, a powerful suction vortex appeared on the card, sealing the monster inside. After completing its mission, the card also automatically flew towards Kamen Rider Faiz, who nodded in satisfaction as he looked at the fish-shaped Awakener in the card. Let Dr. Death handle this card. It happens to perfect Mezur's power, and some research materials can also be improved. After the plan was completed, the Kamen Rider Faiz pulled off the shape-shifting phone from Faiz's belt and withdrew from the shape-shifting. He casually untied the tied belt. After feeling the texture of the belt, Lin Yu casually threw the Faiz belt to Mezuru next to him. Mezuru, take this belt back to the doctor for research. Maybe there will be some different gains for the doctor. After hearing Lin Yu's words, Mezuru obediently nodded and then solemnly put away her belt, including the box of yuan tianjunli. After Mezuru brought the belt, she put the belt and transformation phone in the suitcase and carried them on her body, along with Faiz's laser emitter and fist holster. And when Makoto Arata saw this, he was a bit confused and said, "Is this belt all they have? I'm just borrowing it for now." Mezuru didn't care about so much, she picked up her suitcase and grabbed Lin Yu's hand, wanting to return to the villa. Mezuru really hopes that Dr. Death can research the core coin soon, so that she can have some human things and feel everything Lin Yu feels. Lin Yu didn't resist either. Seeing Mezuru's anxious expression, he felt a little moved. Mezuru didn't do this for herself. Yuan Tianjinshi saw that Lin Yu and others had taken the faiz belt, but she reluctantly followed suit. She only had this belt in her hand, and if it were taken away, she would have no way to protect herself. Yuan Tian truth can only follow them, otherwise what else can we do? Waiting for other Awakener to come and kill ourselves. Xian Qiao shook his head as he watched their disappearing figures and said, whatever, it's not his own business anyway. Xian Qiao disliked trouble very much, shook her head, turned around, and left, pondering whether she should find a job this afternoon. After walking for a while, Lin Yu and Mezuru also discovered the truth behind them. Lin Yu looked at the cautious truth behind him strangely and said, "What are you doing with us?" "We're going home." Yuan Tianjinshi stared at Mezuru's suitcase and said with a bulging face, "You have taken all my things. If I don't follow you, who will I follow? Why don't you give it back to me? Then I don't have to follow you, how about it?" said Yuan Tianjinshi, hesitating as she looked at Lin Yu for a moment. Lin Yu looked at Yuan Tianjin, who was full of anticipation, and joked, "Give it back to you. No problem." After hearing Lin Yu's words, Yuan Tian Shinji excitedly said, "Is it really possible? I really appreciate you." Yuan Tian Shinji originally thought that anyone who received a belt would be infatuated with the power of the belt, so she would not return it to her. In the hopeful gaze of Yuan Tianjinshi, Lin Yu took out a seal card from behind with a friendly smile, and then threw his hand onto the suitcase to seal it into the card. Lin Yu caught the flying card and came to Yuan Tianjinli's face. He raised the card in front of Yuan Tianjinli and shook it, saying, "Even if I give you my belt now, can you use it?" Yuan Tianjinshi was stunned when she saw this, shook her head to confirm that it was not an illusion, and then looked at Lin Yu with confusion. This guy doesn't look like an ordinary person, and what kind of ability is it to put things into cards? Isn't that amazing? However, soon the gaze of Yuria Arata became resentful. She really couldn't use this thing, could she tell those Awakener faiz belts to be inside this card? Yukida Shinji shook her head and said, "In that case, you should keep it safe." Yukida Shinji really has no way to deal with this situation. Lin Yu didn't care about these things and casually threw the card towards Mezuru's direction. The card in mid-air emitted a burst of light and then released the sealed night belt. The blank seal card also flew back to Lin Yu's head direction. Lin Yu casually put the card into his pocket, waved his hand, and continued on. Lin Yu usually needs to swipe his card or trigger certain conditions when summoning some monsters, such as inputting some energy as a trigger point. But for non-living objects like this, Lin Yu can summon them without swiping his card, and he doesn't need to touch the seal. Lin Yu touched his chin and looked at Yuan Tianjinshi, saying, "Since you have come to my house, as a condition of protecting you, we will leave our household chores to you in the future. Don't be grateful to us, this is what we should do." After Lin Yu finished speaking with great righteousness, he walked in front of Yuan Tianjinli with Mezuru eating melons, without looking back. Truth glared at Lin Yu with an angry expression and shouted, "Damn it, this guy took my things and even helped him with household chores. I will definitely not agree to him." Yuan Tianjin Ideal turned around here and wanted to leave, but she looked around at the black environment and then thought of the terrifying monsters. Her body stiffened as she looked towards Lin Yu's direction. After hesitating for a moment, Yuan Tianjinli ran towards Lin Yu, with an angry expression on his face, but couldn't vent it, but it looked very cute. Lin Yu nodded as expected as he looked at Yuan Tianjinli, who was following him, and took her back to his villa. Anyway, she doesn't have much combat ability, so what if she brings it in? Can an ordinary person with Awakener still harm them? Just kidding. Chapter 8, The Work of Yukida Shinji. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After returning to the villa with Lin Yu and Mezuru, who were talking and laughing, Yuan Tianjinli was shocked to see the large and luxurious villa. "Are you so wealthy? How could you have such a big villa in such a bustling place? You wouldn't be the young master of any group, would you?" However, Yuan Tianjinjin guessed a bit right, but not entirely. Lin Yu owns all the assets of the company, and no one can control Lin Yu's actions. The biggest controller of this consortium is Lin Yu, but usually he is too lazy to handle these things and just hand them over to those who are under control. Anyway, with their rich management experience in the past, their usual methods are also more diverse. The company is growing day by day through their efforts, and it doesn't require him to put in any effort to get involved. After arriving at the living room, Mezuru took the Knight's belt to Dr. Death's research room. I believe Dr. Death would be very happy to see the Knight's belt. After waiting for Mezuru to leave, Lin Yu looked at Yuan Tianjinshi and pointed to the somewhat chaotic environment around him, saying, "Coincidentally, the hygiene here is a bit dirty. Go and tidy it up. Once it's done, choose a room on the second floor." After speaking, Lin Yu returned to his room, while Yuan Tian Shinji stood there dumbfounded, with a slightly angry face as he watched Lin Yu leave. Can this guy really treat himself like a nanny? At first, Yuan Tianjinli thought it was just a joke, but unexpectedly however, even though Truth Garden knew this, he still reluctantly started cleaning the house and had no choice but to rely on others. This kind of self has little say. During the cleaning process, Yuria Arata was constantly fantasizing, if I could also use my belt to transform in the future, then I must teach this guy a good lesson. It seemed that Lin Yu had given up, and Yuan Tianjinshi happily tidied up. Lin Yu began to take action in the room based on his own speculation. Since Joker's belt can transform into the appearance of an undead beast using the card of an undead beast, would brushing a night card also have the same effect? Lin Yu already knew that his belt was unique, and there was no Joker Chalice Awakener that could display a night card. I am also a Phoenix-type Joker that has never appeared before. Just by relying on myself, I will not be sealed, and even if I am eliminated, I will constantly resurrect. After resurrection, my strength becomes even stronger. With this, it's not something that ordinary Jokers can do anymore. Just think of it and do it. Lin Yu instantly summoned his Chalice Awakener with a thought, and then Lin Yu took out a heart from the nearby card box. Ace card. Subsequently, Lin Yu swiped the awakening card. A, transforming into a praying mantis, from the Chalice Awakener. Change. Accompanied by a burst of sound effects, Lin Yu's body began to spread black waves of energy from his belt, enveloping him. Subsequently, these energies suddenly dispersed like droplets, and Lin Yu transformed into the Kamen Rider Chalice. However, the most crucial moment came when Kamen Rider Chalice took out his newly acquired faiz night card and swiped it from the Chalice Awakener. Faiz. Complete, action completed, accompanied by a burst of sound effects, ripples of energy appeared on the body of Kamen Rider Chalice. When these energies dispersed like water, the appearance of Kamen Rider Chalice had transformed into that of Kamen Rider Faiz. The Kamen Rider Faiz looked at his whole body excitedly and said, "Sure enough, this Chalice Awakener can really transform into a Kamen Rider." However, the Knight's transformation still retains the original transformation settings, only the original special effects will appear, and there will be no other transformation effects. But that's okay, special effects and the like are not very important, as long as the power is in place. Faiz, the Kamen Rider, curiously took out the card of the mobile Pegasus. Feeling restless, Faiz swiped the card of the mobile Pegasus on the Chalice Awakener. Mobile Pegasus, after the sound effect, the swiped mobile Tianma card detached from the palm of the Kamen Rider Faiz and flew into the sky, transforming into a huge energy card that quickly moved towards the ground. After the energy card dropped to a certain height, the mobile Tianma's body slowly appeared in front of Lin Yu. After the energy card completely disappeared, the mobile Pegasus also revealed its full appearance, and then the mobile Pegasus automatically flew in the sky in the form of a robot. Faiz, the Kamen Rider, controlled the mobile Pegasus in the sky and played for a while before cancelling the card effect. The mobile Pegasus also transformed into energy particles and disappeared into the air. Faiz, the Kamen Rider, looked at the disappearing mobile Pegasus with excitement and said, "We can really succeed. So this must have been useful." However, there are no experimental subjects at the moment. Kamen Rider Faiz thought it over and decided to give it a try if there is a chance. After playing with Kamen Rider Faiz for a while, his mind touched and transformed, restoring Lin Yu's human form. He looked harmless to humans and animals, giving people an inexplicable sense of familiarity. Lin Yu thought carefully and said, "This kind of card is powerful, but how did you obtain it?" This makes Lin Yu a little confused. At this point, the system also began to speak. "Master, the Kamen Rider you transformed into has two unrestricted special cards. The first type is the seal card that comes with the Chalice Awakener itself. Once the target is sealed, this card can obtain all the opponent's strength, including form, weapons, equipment, and vehicle. But correspondingly, that person will also lose all their strength and become an ordinary person completely because their power is sealed off." Lin Yu shook his head after learning how to use sealed cards. Although Lin Yu was not a good person, he didn't need to make the knight lose his power because of some cards, which could potentially lead to the destruction of the world. Moreover, there are some Kamen Riders with great potential for improvement, such as the unlimited evolutionary power of Kamen Rider Agita and the golden fruit of Silly Orange. There is still a need for the existence of the Great Knight. Although Lin Yu wants more power, there is no need to destroy each Kamen Knight due to some optional power. If that's the case, Lin Yu may also enjoy the power of the Heisei Knight kick like those villainous bosses. Anyway, with the power of his current Phoenix-type Joker, there is no danger to his life, and the crisis that a single Joker can cause world destruction is also within Lin Yu's controllable ability. Since that's already the case, why bother making trouble? The system also understood Lin Yu's idea and continued, "Of course. There is another type of card generated by the system and the Chalice Awakener, which is called a duplicate card. This type of card is mainly used to defeat the opponent, or when the opponent completely loses resistance consciousness, this card can replicate all the strength of the opponent's form. However, only one form can be replicated, and this type of card needs to be purchased separately because it is not a card naturally produced by the Chalice Awakener and contains some unique system powers. Although these two types of cards are both initial cards, sometimes their function is much greater than that of seal cards." Chapter 9, First Anti-Lottery. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Is that so? If possible, collecting the power of knights would be a bit complicated. You should know that some Kamen Knights can have dozens of different forms alone. Isn't that complicated? Although one's Chalice card box is connected to a different dimensional space, even with a large number of cards, it can be tolerated. But, when Lin Yu thinks of this usage method, he finds it very troublesome. Collecting one form after another is really too laborious. However, after thinking for a moment, it seemed unnecessary for Lin Yu to be so troublesome because he didn't need to collect every form. He just needed to collect their powerful forms, or forms with special abilities. Some mediocre forms have no need to be collected, so seals can be used to deal with monsters and some Kamen Riders who are against you. However, there are also some quirky cards, such as in the Kamen Rider Faiz world where Lin Yu is located. Some quirky characters are still very strong, such as the King of Orphei Entertainment, Baki's dragon-shaped Orphei Ino, and Murakami Gorge's rose-shaped Orphei Ino. These strange people, Lin Yu, all have the need to collect. Lin Yu's body can become stronger by devouring the power of other life forms, and can also become stronger by devouring the power of cards, gaining abilities from other worlds. This is also one of the reasons why Lin Yu is special, but currently he has not tried this ability. Swallowing life forms requires him to return to the form of a Joker, and Lin Yu does not want too many people to know the power of his Joker. Therefore, Lin Yu plans to seal the monsters in the future and then devour their power, which will make the secrecy much better. However, he was curious about why he could transform into the Kamen Rider faiz. Although he was not a Feilu, was it because he was also a monster? Perhaps. The system sensed some of Lin Yu's thoughts and answered, that's because the power of the Master Joker can simulate other energies to a certain extent when eliminating enemies. In the last battle against those Ophinos, when you used Joker form to defeat them, you also absorbed some energy into Joker's body, which contains some of Ophieno's power, allowing you to transform your master. I understand. That is to say, even without the power of cards, Lin Yu can become stronger without limits in the process of constantly eliminating enemies after transforming into a Joker. However, after thinking for a moment, Lin Yu decided to let it go. This kind of strong fluctuation was too small, just like the three Ophinos absorbing them. Lin Yu felt that his strength had not increased at all. It is also possible that they are too weak, but Lin Yu thought for a moment and felt that it must be like this. Those Ophidinos looked very down on them, it seemed like they were just miscellaneous level Ophidinos, so their strength was too low. How could such combat effectiveness bring any strength to Lin Yu? That's absolutely impossible. However, after this period of accumulation, Lin Yu's points reached 15,000, including some points obtained by Mezuru's desire, and the other points obtained by Lin Yu's elimination of Ophieno. Thinking of this, Lin Yu also plans to start his own lottery journey. Apart from the initial lottery, Lin Yu has never drawn before. However, this lottery in the system is really special. There is no level for this lottery, and the basic points for a lottery are 1,000. The larger the points you invest in the future, the more likely you are to draw good things. Of course, you can also choose not to invest, so the quality of the drawn things cannot be guaranteed. After thinking about it, Lin Yu exchanged all 5,000 points for duplicate cards. The previous card was only used by the system to give Lin Yu a try, so there were no extra duplicate cards left in the future. After completing the redemption of the duplicate card, Lin Yu plans to use the remaining 10,000 points to test the odds of winning. So Lin Yu silently recited to the system, "System, I want a lottery." System. Okay, Master, we will prepare for you immediately. After a few seconds, a bunch of virtual cards appeared in front of Lin Yu, and he could control the input of card points for each card he drew. However, this time there were not only 9 cards left. Upon a rough inspection, Lin Yu saw that there were at least 200 cards in front of him. It seems that there may be a lot more things to draw from the lottery, but the probability of winning good things has also decreased. However, upon reflection, Lin Yu casually took out a card from a pile of cards, and that card became a physical entity when Lin Yu touched it. Lin Yu flipped over and saw that the pattern on it actually looked like a game virus, just the lowest level cannon fodder soldiers. Lin Yu felt that the main function of this type of soldier was to serve as cannon fodder, with no other use at all. He felt that it was even weaker than the Shoka soldiers. Seeing the true appearance of this card, Lin Yu threw it aside and then looked at the pile of cards in front of him, taking out 9 cards at once. Holding cards that were already quite high in his hand, Lin Yu began flipping through them one by one, but the result was not very good. The second card, Lin Yu, flipped it over and saw that the card repair soldier was useless. The third one is still a card repair soldier, it's useless. Is the cannon fodder ghoul in the Kamen Rider wizard in the fourth picture? But it's not much use either. The fifth one is still a useless card repair soldier. The seventh one is better, but it's just a cannon fodder level dragon trap monster, not very useful. The seventh one is from the memory of the Kamen Riders Kamen Ball in the world of Kamen Riders. It sounds good, but in reality, it is the most ordinary subordinate memory and still useless. The 8th and 9th cards were still garbage, and Lin Yu weakly placed them on the table. Looking at the patterns on them, he couldn't help feeling a little down. I'll go, the first 9 cards I got were all weak chickens. Is that a low probability? I won't be fooled, will I? Lin Yu took a look and found that after recycling these cards, he may not even receive 1,000 points, which can be said to be a loss of blood. Lin Yu looked at the last card in his hand with hope. If none of the last cards were successful, to be honest, Lin Yu would lose hope for this lottery. With excitement in his heart, Lin Yu placed the card on the palm of his left hand, then lifted his right hand and slowly placed it on the back of the card, slowly sliding it down to reveal its original appearance. After all the appearances of this card were exposed, Lin Yu instantly became ecstatic. What was on this card was Chapter 10, Dr. Death's Excitement. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After looking at this card in surprise for a while, Lin Yu solemnly placed it in the card box on the right side of the Chalice Awakener. Although the ability data of the villain Lin Yu drew may not be too top-notch among the entire villain, his ability is exactly what Lin Yu needs, and it has brought Lin Yu a surprise. After putting away the cards, Lin Yu's gaze turned to the garbage cards that were pulled out, and he handed them all to Dr. Death for research. Although the power of these cards is very weak, at least they are from different worlds, which can enrich Dr. Death's knowledge reserves to some extent. There is still some help in creating monsters, otherwise recycling them would be too wasteful. It's better to use them as experimental objects to create powerful monsters. Lin Yu is not very dissatisfied with the first part of this lottery, but he is still quite satisfied with the last card in the later stage. Just that card Lin Yu won't lose out this time, and Mezuru's core coin development has reached the final stage, so there is no need to spend points to exchange it for her because what Lin Yu exchanged was only the ordinary core coin of Mezuru, while what Dr. Death made was a card repair coin with the power of otherworld monsters. Although this card repair coin may not be as powerful as the card repair monster in the theatrical version, the key is that it has a large quantity. As long as she uses these card-fixing coins researched by Dr. Death, Mezuru will have all the power of greed. At that time, Mezuru will not only be limited to nest-type greedy individuals, but can also create other types of greedy individuals, and the power of the created greedy individuals will be greatly enhanced. However, one thing is that if the power of each card repair coin is as powerful as the theatrical version, Mezuru's body would also go berserk if she received so many core coins at the same time. Dr. Death may have also considered this reason, so he weakened certain aspects of the coin repair, forming a mutually existing entity. However, Dr. Death also planned to specially manufacture 3 special card repair coins for Lin Yu, which, according to him, far exceeded the power recognized by the core coins. However, these 3 core coins are still in the exploration stage and have not even started production, it is just a speculation. Therefore, Lin Yu did not hold too high expectations, and achieving it naturally is excellent. If it cannot be achieved, there will be no loss for himself. Just as Lin Yu was overjoyed by his gains, SB Society couldn't be happy anymore. Murakami Syaur said with a cold face, "What is the situation? Why haven't they brought back the Knight's Belt? Instead, they all went missing." A woman who looked very sexy and seductive sat across from Murakami Gore, holding a cocktail and slowly drinking it. She didn't pay much attention to Murakami Gore's reaction as she looked at him in a fit of anger. "President, as far as I know, the Knight's Belt has already been taken by a mysterious person, and all the people investigating this recent incident, Ofuro, have mysteriously died. I suspect that someone is targeting us." Murakami Syaur looked at Ayako Kazuyama for a moment and said, "In this world, besides the former president's Night Belt, the only one we can fight against is Afeino. But Afeino is already in our hands, can there be any other power?" Murakami Syaur frowned and thought for a while, but couldn't figure it out. She looked at the glass in her hand and muttered to herself, "Who exactly did it?" In the research room, after Dr. Lin Yu sent the strange people, Dr. Death began to continuously study them. Dr. Death looked at the monsters that had been unblocked and clearly looked excited. Undoubtedly, it is the young master who can bring so many strange powers. Although their powers are all very weak, their powers are indeed completely different. After finishing speaking, Dr. Death looked at a yellow virus in a culture tank and said, "For example, this thing called a game virus. Since it can infect the human body to produce a new life form, when the infected life form dies, the new life form will also become a complete body and gain tremendous power. What a magical power! After sighing, Dr. Death turned to the standing ghoul and said, "And this one, there is actually a special force inside its body. Although it is very weak, it has a special energy that has great research value. And this thing, like a USB drive, actually stores some data like energy and can transform into a monster. Although its power is weak, this way is really novel. The young master's power is indeed beyond our imagination." After Dr. Death finished his emotions, he looked at the strange people in front of him and began some of his own experiments. Firstly, analyze these energies and then try to combine them together to see if they will produce any unique effects. Another way is to use that game virus to infect some weak organisms, and then study the game virus in their bodies to obtain a large amount of information. However, all research is controlled within the controllable range of Dr. Death to avoid crises and be resolved in a timely manner. Within this scope, Dr. Death will summarize the generated data and attempt to start the next step of research. The purpose of the research is to create more powerful monsters and provide the best service to the Supreme Lin Yu in his heart. So far, the consortium they formed behind them has not been named and still exists in a secretive manner. Dr. Death also wants to ask Lin Yu for his opinion. Let's take a look at the name of this consortium. Such a big event must be personally initiated by Lin Yu. Lin Yu thought for a while but couldn't come up with a good name. Later on, Lin Yu no longer hesitated. Anyway, he couldn't think of a good name himself, so why not choose any one? So at this random moment, Consortium G was born. Although it was born hastily, it does not mean that the name was randomly chosen. This name originates from the homophonic symbol G of the first letter J of Lin Yu's identity as a joker. On the one hand, it indicates Lin Yu's identity, and on the other hand, it serves as a warning to future enemies not to provoke Lin Yu, otherwise they will all go to death. And this name has also gained everyone's recognition. After all, everyone listens to Lin Yu, of course. Whatever Lin Yu says is what he says. Although Lin Yu had no intention of aggression, with the intervention of Dr. Death, the Consortium G quickly swept across Tokyo, and even the power of the Consortium G existed everywhere in Japan. The rise of Consortium G has led many Ophinos to have ulterior motives, but none of them have gone missing, or even dead. And some of the more special ones, even if they survive by chance, are used by Dr. Death as scientific specimens. Under such a tide, even SB Society, which initially looked down upon the consortium, had to step back and send people to seek cooperation.